You cannot relax around certain people because your nervous system is not reacting to them as a person. It is reacting to them as an environment. And that sounds dramatic until you notice the pattern. You can be fine all day, and then one specific person walks in and your body quietly locks its doors. Your breathing changes. Your jokes get smaller. You start monitoring your own face like you are on trial. You do not even dislike them. Sometimes you respect them. Sometimes they are nice. And still you cannot settle. Quick thing before we go deeper. We are building toward 1,000 subscribers, and your subscription genuinely helps us reach more people who actually want psychology that is not just recycled slogans. And if this hits a nerve, tap like too. It tells the algorithm this is worth showing to people who need it. All right, here is what is actually happening. Most people think this is about social anxiety or confidence or being too sensitive. But that explanation collapses the moment you realize it is selective. You can relax around friends, you can relax alone, you can even relax around strangers. But around this specific type of person, your system goes into what I call high-resolution mode. High-resolution mode is when your brain stops living and starts sampling. It takes more data per second. Micro changes in tone, tiny pauses, eye contact timing, the meaning behind their laugh, the vibe of their silence. That is why you feel tired after spending time with them, even if nothing bad happened. Your body was running a heavier operating system, and the new insight most people miss is this. The trigger is not danger. The trigger is uncertainty about your status and safety inside the relationship. Not are they going to hurt me? But do I know the rules of this person's approval? And can those rules change without warning? Think about this for a second. In most relationships, your brain can compress the other person into a stable model. They are generally warm, or generally blunt, or generally shy. Predictable enough that you can relax because you know what reality you are in. But some people do something different. They make you do continuous model updating. And continuous model updating is basically the opposite of relaxation. Now here is where it gets interesting. There are at least 3 distinct mechanisms that create that locked door feeling, and if you confuse them, you will try the wrong solution and blame yourself when it does not work. The first mechanism is what I call variable reward signaling. You already know variable rewards from technology. Slot machines, social media notifications. Sometimes you get validation, sometimes you get ignored, and that unpredictability becomes addictive. But in social settings, the same principle happens with warmth. Some people are intermittently attuned. They can be charming, then cold. They can compliment you, then subtly undermine you. They can act close, then disappear emotionally. And your nervous system learns the worst possible lesson. Closeness is unstable. The brain hates unstable reward because it cannot plan. So what does it do? It starts scanning for early warning signs. Not consciously like a detective, but bodily like an animal. That is why you cannot relax. Relaxation requires the assumption that the next 30 seconds will resemble the last 30 seconds. Intermittent warmth breaks that assumption. Let me show you what I mean in a real scenario. You are at dinner and they are pleasant, asking questions, laughing. Your shoulders drop. Then you say one thing and their face changes for half a second. They look away. They give a small Nothing is said, but your whole system spikes. You replay the sentence, you try to repair. You become careful. Your personality shrinks. People call that overthinking. It is not. It is prediction error management. Your brain just received a signal that your social safety model is wrong, and it is trying to correct it fast because in our evolutionary history, a sudden status loss inside a group was not just embarrassing, It was dangerous. And here is the punchline. You do not even need the person to be intentionally manipulative. Some people are simply inconsistent because they are emotionally dysregulated, distracted, or self-absorbed. Your nervous system does not care about their intentions. It cares about the statistical reliability of their signals. If you have ever thought, I cannot relax because I do not know which version of them I'm going to get, that is not your imagination. That is the mechanism. But do not get comfortable, because the second mechanism is more subtle and, honestly, more common. The second mechanism is hidden evaluation. There are people who turn every conversation into an exam without saying so. They do it through micro-reactions, a slight smirk, a corrective tone, an interesting that sounds like a warning, or they do it through the kinds of questions they ask, questions that force you to justify your choices rather than share them. Notice the pattern here. You are not afraid of them. You are afraid of being miscast by them. Your mind starts defending your identity in advance. You pre-edit. You give safer opinions. You speak in disclaimers. You start performing reasonable person instead of being a person. The mechanism behind this is that your brain treats social evaluation like a resource allocation problem. If this person judgment affects your access to belonging, opportunities, reputation, or even just peace, your brain allocates resources to impression management. Impression management is expensive. It is not just trying to look good. It is a full-time background process, monitoring, adjusting, predicting, and suppressing. And this is why the phrase, just be yourself, is one of the most useless pieces of advice ever given. Because the self you are around evaluative people is not yourself. It is yourself under audit. Here is a test you can run mentally. Around them, do you find yourself needing to explain normal things? Do you find yourself adding extra context so you cannot be misunderstood? Do you feel relief when you leave because you can finally stop representing yourself? That is hidden evaluation. You are not relaxing because you are in a courtroom, just with no official trial. And if you want a deeper layer, the reason this hits so hard is because humans are hypersensitive to rank uncertainty. Not rank as in money, but rank as in, where do I stand with you right now? A stable hierarchy is actually calming. You know the rules. And rank uncertainty is chaos, and chaos keeps the nervous system alert. Now stay with me, because this next part recontextualizes both mechanisms. Sometimes you cannot relax around someone not because they are inconsistent or judgmental, but because they are too controlled. This is the third mechanism, emotional opacity. Some people are unreadable, they have a flat effect, they give minimal feedback, they do not mirror you, they do not leak much emotion. And in modern culture, we often call that mysterious or stoic, like it is automatically impressive. Your nervous system experiences it as missing data. Humans regulate each other through micro-mirroring. When someone nods, you feel seen. When someone's face responds naturally, you get confirmation that you are in sync. That is not poetic, it is nervous system coupling. And researchers call parts of this interpersonal synchrony. Your body literally calibrates based on the other person's signals. When the signals are absent, your brain fills the gap with threat possibilities, because the cost of missing danger is higher than the cost of a false alarm. That is basic error management theory. So around opaque people, your brain does not get enough feedback to know if you are safe, liked, boring, annoying, respected, or being silently dismissed. So it turns on high resolution mode again, and then you blame yourself for being awkward. But the awkwardness is a normal response to an abnormal lack of social information. Now here is the mid-script turn, and I want you to really let it land. What if the reason you cannot relax is not primarily about them? What if it is about the role you are forced to play in their presence? Because these three mechanisms all have one thing in common. They make you split into two selves. There is the self that is speaking and the self that is watching. When you are relaxed, those selves merge. You speak and you are not tracking yourself. You are in the interaction. When you are around certain people, you become your own surveillance system. You watch your tone, your posture, your words, your facial expressions. And that internal watcher is not neutral. It is trying to prevent social pain. That is the deeper cost. It is not the conversation. It is the self-division, and you can feel it in a very specific way. The sensation of being a little bit outside your body, like you are managing yourself instead of living. Now let me connect this to something even more precise. Your body is tracking what I call repair load. Repair load is the amount of effort required to keep a relationship smooth when friction happens. In a secure relationship, repairs are cheap. You misunderstand each other, you clarify, you laugh, it resolves. No big physiological cost. In high repair load relationships, small moments require major management. A tiny misstep turns into tension. A joke becomes a potential offense. A boundary becomes a problem. And your body knows this. It anticipates the cost and tightens up before anything even happens. This is why you can be around someone who never directly attacks you, but you still cannot relax. The repair load is high because the system is brittle, and brittle systems demand vigilance. If you have ever felt like, I have to be careful around them, you were not being dramatic. You were doing cost forecasting. Your nervous system was running a budget. Now watch what happens when we apply this to family dynamics, because that is where this gets brutally clear. A lot of people cannot relax around a parent, not because the parent is actively abusive, but because the parent historically made love conditional on performance, mood, or loyalty. That creates variable reward signaling. Or the parent made the child responsible for the parent's emotional state. That creates extreme repair load. Or the parent never mirrored the child's inner world. That creates emotional opacity. Then the child grows up and their body still reacts to those cues in other people. A boss, a partner, a friend who just has a strong personality. The adult thinks they are reacting to the present. Their body is reacting to a pattern. This is nuanced but important. Your nervous system generalizes. It does not store the person. It stores the template. So what do you do with this without turning your life into a witch hunt? Here is the payoff framework. I call it the 3 signals model. When you cannot relax around someone, your body is usually responding to one or more missing signals: consistency, benevolence, and legibility. Consistency means their responses follow patterns you can predict. Benevolence means mistakes do not become punishments. Legibility means their internal state is readable enough that you can co-regulate. If one of these is missing occasionally, you might feel mild tension. If 2 are missing, you will feel guarded. If all 3 are missing, you will feel like you cannot breathe around them. And now you can diagnose instead of catastrophize. Ask yourself, which signal is missing? If consistency is missing, you stop chasing closeness through performance. You reduce exposure, you stop trying to win the good version of them, and you watch their patterns over time instead of reacting to moments. If benevolence is missing, you stop over-explaining. You practice clean, minimal communication. You set boundaries early, because in low benevolence environments, late boundaries get interpreted as betrayal. If legibility is missing, you stop trying to read minds. You ask direct questions and you accept that if they cannot or will not provide emotional data, you will never feel relaxed, and that is not a personal failure. It is a systems incompatibility. Notice what I just did. not be confident, not think positive. Actual levers. And there is one more layer that separates people who merely understand this from people who change their lives with it. Your ability to relax is not a personality trait. It is a measurement. It is your body's verdict on relational safety. So instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" ask, "What is my body detecting that my mind keeps trying to talk me out of?" Sometimes your mind says, "They are fine. They mean well." And your body says, "The data does not support that." And to be fair, your body can be wrong. Trauma can create false alarms. But the answer is not to ignore the signal. The answer is to verify it with a better model. You verify by watching repair attempts. When you express a small preference, do they punish you or adjust? When you misunderstand, do they clarify or shame? When you say no, do they respect it or escalate? Those are the real indicators, not their charm, not their words, their behavior under mild friction. Because anyone can act safe when everything is going their way. Safety is revealed when things do not. So the real reason you cannot relax around certain people is that your nervous system is doing threat math with incomplete or unstable social data. It is not weakness, it is computation. And the moment you see that, something changes. You stop treating your tension as a character flaw. You start treating it as information. Here is my challenge for you. The next time you feel that guarded feeling, do not immediately blame yourself, and do not immediately blame them either. Just ask, which of the three signals is missing right now? Consistency, benevolence, or legibility? Because when you can name the missing signal, you stop being trapped in the fog, and the fog is where people get controlled. If this shifted how you see certain relationships, I would genuinely like to hear what pattern you noticed in the comments. And remember this line because it is the whole video in one sentence. You relax around people who make your nervous system stop gathering evidence.